Hi class, my name is Thomas Calandra and I'll be presenting you today on two articles. The first one being China's geo-economic power and the China's geo-economic power and that with the United States. Sorry I couldn't be in class today, I had a family emergency, so I will be doing a video, and just so you know, Professor Yoon, I don't have any notes or any note cards. I'm just doing this right into my phone, so this way I can present to you guys. So for my first article, like I said, it's about geoeconomic power in China and with the US. So as we already know, China is becoming very globalized over the past couple of years and past couple of decades, whereas a long time ago it wasn't, and the United States was the main power of the world and of the economy. Now China is starting to put its footprint on that map, and one thing they're doing and one thing why they're very successful in doing so is that they have their footprint in many other countries, and they're building infrastructures and making direct investments in countries all over the world, not only in Europe but South Asia, which I'll be talking about later. And one problem is that the rest of the countries, they want to make direct investments into China, but one problem is that China doesn't allow it to be that easy with certain regulations and laws. China wants to be the one putting in a footprint into every country, but they don't want anything coming into their country. And one example of that is the United States. Now, the United States and China both need each other. They wish they could pull the plug on each other, like the article says, but in reality, they know they need each other in the end, because we do a lot of trades with China and China does a lot of trades with them. But we don't have direct investments in China, and China doesn't really have direct investments in us. But the smart thing to do would be to direct invest into China, and China do the same thing in the United States. And one example of that is the US. We all use Uber, which is pretty much a taxi service that we can get on our phones. And they tried to penetrate the market in China, bringing Uber over to China. And what China did is they did allow it and they did accept it, but almost in spite, China decided their next best thing in Uber. I forget the name of it. I think it's called Didi something, but it's pretty much a equivalent to Uber. They put their money into the United States competitor, which is Lyft. And Lyft is pretty much almost the same thing as Uber, but more in the city areas like New York, where you could carpool and split the bill. So while the U.S. tried to make a direct investment in China, China, in spite, made a direct investment into the United States. So it's almost like a wash, and that's not the right way to do business with countries that want to work together and that are the main powers of the world. And part of that is now also when China wants to invest into the United States doesn't really comply with China. It really does not want to succumb to them. So what China did, kind of in spite, is the name of the organization, they built an organization called AIIB, which is the Asian Infrastructure Bank. And what they did was they brought countries all around, especially the United Kingdom, which is pretty much in alliance with the US, and they all came together to build so that China could build infrastructure and those other countries could build infrastructure all in other countries, which is great for them. But they're doing this because the United States won't succumb to China building anything in the United States. And at the end of the day, because of that, China is doing a great job with putting, again, their footprint in all the countries. So I think it's just important because at the end of the day, especially with the presidential candidates, we know that China takes a lot of our business. We know a lot of businesses go over to China, and they sell things into America as cheap, just like Apple, just like clothes that we wear, everything like that. But they also are very important to us, and China needs us. So maybe we might have to take the stance that to be a little bit more stricter on China, that, they'll lose us if they keep treating the United States in this way, that when we try to make direct investments in their country and they don't let us, and they try to do things out of spite, even though we don't comply to many things that they want to do in the United States, but that's because they're taking a lot of our jobs and because they're building a lot of products in their country and selling to us for cheap. So that's one thing that we have to look into, and one thing that we have to take into consideration. And then my next article is about China's geoeconomic power in South Asia. Now, there's a lot of countries that border China, and not the best countries as we can imagine. Pakistan, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, many countries and cities border China. And also India is of course right there. And India is trying to also make their footprint and grow as a global power. But one thing that is stopping them is China. And China's strategy is to invest in all these countries around them, like Pakistan, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, to kind of make the strategy so India can't grow. So India can't grow into that global power. And Pakistan and Afghanistan and those type of countries are very thankful because they're the beneficiaries of China and their investment into their countries. And China makes a great profit and a great return on investment when they do invest in those type of countries. And they're very thankful for China, and they stand with China. So it's scary how much China is growing in all of these areas and making a great investment. And the reason why India, as an article says, there was a war in 1962 called the Sino-Indian War, which I believe was in 1962. And after that, India and China kind of don't have a great relationship. And they should be working together to grow together. And they should be working together as big of, the countries that they are, but they are not working together. And it's hurting India in the end because China at this point doesn't care and is going to do whatever it takes to invest in other countries and continue to grow their power. But at the end of the article, it says, because they believe, and a lot of people believe that eventually, China's wealth is going to run out and they're not going to be able to do this. So at the end of the day, are they going to have to, comply with the U.S. because they're doing this to keep the United States out of all of these countries in Asia and Europe, so that the United States doesn't grow their power and China can eventually be the power of the whole world. But eventually, if China's wealth dwindles down, as people think it will, do they go to the United States and have to comply with them and have to work together to get it done, or will they fall flat and the United States will rise? Those are my two articles. Thank you, class. I'm sorry I couldn't be there, and thank you.